Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Vaibhav Jyotsna Srivastav and with me is Prashant Kumar Sinha, bringing glimpses of major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring for you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. In this edition, we have exclusive interview with the UN Resident Commissioner for India, Renata Desali, on 75 years of India-UN partnership. As the world fights the COVID-19 pandemic, we begin the program with a message of precaution to stay safe and protected by following these three simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain social distancing, focus on hand and face hygiene. The headlines. India's expert committee of Central Drugs Authority recommends to grant approval for emergency use of COVID-19 vaccine. Nationwide dry run of COVID-19 vaccination exercise held in India today. COVID-19 recovery rate improves to 96.12% in India. 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks mastermind Zakiur Rahman Lakhvi arrested in Pakistan for terror financing. IAEA says Iran has plans to enrich uranium to up to 20% purity. And in cricket, former Indian skipper suffers a heart attack, condition stable now. India's Subject Expert Committee of Central Drug Standard Control Organization CDSCO has made the recommendations for the consideration and final decision of the Drugs Controller General of India on use of COVID-19 vaccine. It has recommended to grant of permission for restricted emergency use of vaccine subject to multiple regulatory conditionalities to Serum Institute of India, Pune. A report from our correspondent.
CDSCO has recommended to grant of permission for restricted emergency use of vaccine subject to multiple regulatory conditionalities to Serum Institute of India, Pune. The Subject Expert Committee of CDSCO has recommended to grant permission for restricted use in emergency situation in public interest as an abundant precaution in clinical trial mode, especially in the context of infection by mutual strains, to Bharat Biotech International Limited, Hyderabad. It has also recommended to grant permission for conduct of Phase 3 clinical trial protocol to Cadila Healthcare Limited, Ahmedabad. The World Health Organization, WHO, on Thursday listed the Comirnaty COVID-19 mRNA vaccine for emergency use, making the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine the first to receive emergency validation from WHO since the outbreak began a year ago. The WHO's emergency use listing opens the door for countries to expedite their own regulatory approval processes to import and administer the vaccine. It also enables UNICEF and the Pan American Health Organization to procure the vaccine for distribution to countries in need. Regulatory experts convened by WHO from around the world and WHO's own teams reviewed the data on the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine safety, efficacy and quality as part of a risk versus benefit analysis. The review found that the vaccine met the must-have criteria for safety and efficacy set out by WHO and that the benefits of using the vaccine to address COVID-19 offset potential risks. The number of people vaccinated against the killer virus in Israel has reached over 950,000. Nearly 2.8 million people in the United States have received a dose of a COVID-19 vaccine, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. On December 8, the United Kingdom became the first country in the world to administer COVID-19 vaccine to its public. The world has reached a pivotal point in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic with rolling out an administration of vaccine. Anupam Mishra for World News, Delhi.
The dry run for COVID-19 vaccine was conducted across India starting today, all states and union territories to ensure effective preparedness for the vaccine rollout. More from our correspondent.
The mock drill conducted today will ensure that Phase 1 of the COVID-19 vaccination goes without any glitch. It was aimed at testing linkages between planning and implementation and identifying the challenges. It was also designed to test COVID application developed specifically for COVID-19 vaccination drive in a field environment. The cold storage and transportation arrangements for the COVID-19 vaccine management of crowd, and deployment of team members were also tested during the mock drill. A 2-day trial run was earlier conducted on December 28 and 29 in 4 states: Assam, Andhra Pradesh, Punjab, and Gujarat. The vaccines would be administered free of cost to priority groups in the first phase on India's inoculation drive. This includes 1 crore healthcare workers and 2 crore frontline workers. Suparna Saikya for World News.
Suparna now joins us over the phone for more. So Suparna, how were these dry runs conducted?
The mock drill was conducted by all states and union territories in at least 3 session sites to test the linkages between planning and implementation and to identify the challenges. Government had already trained participants to administer the vaccine during the dry run. Detailed training modules were developed for different categories of vaccine handlers and administrators, including medical officers, vaccinators, cold chain handlers, and supervisors. The idea was to implement it as a real exercise with attention to the minutest details so that the upcoming vaccination drive may proceed without any glitch.
What are the preparations made so far for the rollout of the vaccine?
As the vaccine administrators will play an important role in the vaccination process, training of trainers and those who shall administer the vaccine has been taken up across various states. So around 96,000 vaccinators have been trained for this purpose, and around 2,360 participants have been trained in the National Training of Trainers, and over 57,000 participants trained in district level training in 719 districts.
Suparna, can you tell us about the CoWIN application developed specifically for COVID-19 vaccination drive?
Prime Minister Narendra Modi had earlier announced that CoWIN software would be used for vaccine distribution in the country. So the centre had written to the states and union territories to collect data on healthcare workers who would be among the first to be administered the COVID-19 vaccine. So once the drive starts, people can self-register as well through this CoWIN mobile application. The data would be uploaded to the CoWIN software to keep a tab on patients who would need to be vaccinated, and later data about those who would need to be administered a second dose of the vaccine.
3 steps to stay protected and stay safe from COVID-19. Wear face mask, 2 gaz ki duri to maintain social distancing, maintain hand and face hygiene.
In a major breakthrough, Indian scientists have successfully cultured the new viral strain UK variant of SARS-CoV-2. No other country has yet reported successful isolation and culture of the UK variant of SARS-CoV-2. The Indian Council of Medical Research, ICMR, said the SARS-CoV-2 was tracked through nationwide network of ICMR laboratories since the early days of the epidemic in India. The National Institute of Virology has isolated and cultured the UK variant of the virus with all signature changes from the clinical specimens collected from UK returnees. The ICMR said the Vero cell lines were used by the scientists of the ICMR NIV to culture the UK variant of the virus. India and China have focused on disengagement of frontline troops to maintain consultations, strengthen the management and control of the troops since the 8th round of Corps Commander level talks. This was stated by the Chinese Defense Ministry spokesperson, Senior Colonel Tan Kefei, at an online press briefing in Beijing. He said that the two sides are negotiating to hold the 9th round of military commander level talks to discuss the disengagement of troops in eastern Ladakh. A report from our Beijing correspondent.
India and China have held several rounds of talks at the diplomatic and military level to resolve the standoff that erupted in early May last year. Chinese Defense Ministry spokesman hoped that both China and India will work towards the same goal, implement the consensus reached at the Corps Commander level meetings, and take pragmatic measures to further cool down the border situation. Earlier, India said that these discussions have helped both sides to enhance understanding of each other's positions. External Ministry Affairs spokesperson said, "It is our expectation that the further discussions will help both sides to achieve an agreement on a mutually acceptable solution for ensuring complete disengagement in all friction points along the LAC in western sector and fully restore the peace and tranquility as early as possible." At the latest round of foreign ministry level talks on December 18 last year, the two sides said that they have agreed to continue work towards ensuring complete disengagement of troops in all the friction points along the LAC. The meeting also decided to hold the next round of military dialogue at an early date. India has reiterated several times that China has violated multiple agreements signed between the two sides since 1993 that committed both parties not to bring large forces to the LAC. Huge amount of troops from both the sides and equipments are deployed in close proximity in the extreme weather conditions of eastern Ladakh. Anshuman Mishra for World News, All India Radio, Beijing.
Meanwhile, the United States National Defense Authorization Act 2021 has conveyed bipartisan support for India in its border standoff with China. It has called upon Beijing to resolve all disputes using existing diplomatic mechanisms, saying that continued military aggression by the government of China along the border with India is a significant concern.
China has said that it will take necessary measures to safeguard the interests of its companies after the New York Stock Exchange began delisting 3 Chinese telecom firms on Friday. Chinese Ministry of Commerce has termed the decision as an abuse of state power to suppress the Chinese firms. Washington said that the companies are either owned or controlled by the military. The move came after President Donald Trump in December 2020 barred U.S. investments in Chinese firms with military ties. Pakistan's Counter-Terrorism Department, CTD, has arrested Zakir Rahman Lakhvi, the mastermind of 2611 Mumbai attacks and current chief of the UN-designated terror outfit Lashkar-e-Taiba. It was stated that Lakhvi was arrested on charges of terrorism financing. His case will now be heard in the Anti-Terrorist Court ATC in Lahore. However, there has been no mention from which place Lakhvi was arrested. Analysts say it can be a ploy by the Pakistani agencies to distract the global attention, given its past record as a safe haven for terrorists. Islamabad is currently on the grey list of global anti-terror financing watchdog FATF. It may be recalled that ahead of the FATF's plenary meeting in October last year, India's External Affairs Ministry spokesperson had flagged Pakistan's cavalier attitude in aiding and abetting terrorists on its soil.
FATF has well laid out standards and procedures for putting a country on its blacklist and its grey list. After a country is put on a list, an action plan is given to it, and the country is expected to fulfill the action plan within a stipulated time frame, of course. Those found wanting in implementing their obligations are held accountable and they are subjected to appropriate action. Now, in the case of Pakistan, it is understood that Pakistan has addressed only 21 action items so far out of the total 27 action items given to them under their action plan. 6 important action items are yet to be addressed. As is well known, Pakistan continues to provide safe havens to terrorist entities and individuals, and it has also not taken any action against several terrorist entities and individuals, including those who have been proscribed by the UNSC, such as Masood Azhar, Dawood Ibrahim and Zakir Rahman Lakhvi.
Marcus Blair, President of Financial Action Task Force FATF, in its October plenary said that Pakistan needs to do much more to crack down on those financing terrorism.
Pakistan has made progress. It needs to do more. Pakistan cannot stop now. It needs to continue to carry out reforms, in particular to implement targeted financial sanctions and prosecute and sanction those financing terrorism.
The FATF also has asked Pakistan to swiftly complete its full action plan by February 2021.
The United Nations nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, has revealed that Iran plans to enrich uranium to up to 20% purity at the Fordow fuel enrichment plant. It would take Iran's nuclear enrichment program to pre-2015 levels when it entered the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action JCPOA with the P5+1 countries. Iran was prohibited enrichment at the Fordow facility until 2031. It also committed to converting the underground facility into a nuclear physics and technology center. The move is the latest in a series of announcements by Iran to the IAEA that it plans to further breach the deal. The move is being seen in retaliation for Washington's withdrawal from the agreement and the reimposition of U.S. sanctions against Tehran. India began its 8th term as a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, the UNSC, on Friday. Spokesperson of the External Affairs Ministry, Anurag Srivastava, said that India begins the UN Security Council tenure with a commitment to promote responsible and inclusive solutions to international peace and security. He said India will seek to provide a new orientation for a reformed multilateral system on norms and a worldview anchored in the ethos of the world is one family. Multilateral institutions have vastly been enriched by India's presence. In our hotspot segment today, we focus on multilateralism and India's role in an exclusive interview with the UN Resident Coordinator for India, Renata Desali.
Namaskar. We have with us Renata Desali, UN Resident Coordinator in India, to share her insights into how effective UN has been as an organization in the global arena. Welcome, Ms. Renata Desali.
Thank you so much, Atul. Great to be here.
At the outset, to say so, congratulations on the Platinum Jubilee, as we say about the UN. It has really been a landmark feat for United Nations. The world body has come a long way. It has been virtually operating in every sphere of life for the welfare of humanity. Can you summarize the key achievements of UN over the years?
And firstly, the UN is a very big and very complicated organization. We cover a huge range of very, very different issues, from nuclear proliferation to nutrition. And we also have a very broad set of stakeholders. Governments, of course, because we are an intergovernmental body, but also we outreach and work with civil society and with the private sector. Also inside the UN, we have a huge number of moving parts. There are over 50 distinct UN agencies, funds, and programs around the world, and that's not even counting the main bodies of the United Nations, like the General Assembly, Security Council, and other councils and commissions. And secondly, the UN was established with quite a few contrasting and sometimes even contradictory characteristics. For example, the UN was established with, it basically was established as a bold experiment in global governance, but it was not given the powers to actually be a global government. All those powers remained with the member states. The dominant organizing principle in today's multilateralism remains the sovereignty of member states. So we're still in what I would call a global governance light phase of multilateralism. And thirdly, the UN was given a huge number of crucial global mandates and issues to work on, but without the needed resources to, achieve the expected results. So all of this leads to some misunderstandings and sometimes even frustrations. And it's not, a surprise that, at the one and the same time, the UN is both ahead of its times, with its aspirational norms and values, and at the same time behind the times, with inadequate funding, resources, etc.
We're talking about some of the achievements of UN. How effective has been it as an organization over the years?
Well, the UN established basically fundamentally to prevent a third world war. It was, established in the ashes of the Second World War, and the international community had had enough, and there was a strong desire not to go there again. And we can say in the 75 years since the establishment of the UN, there has not been a third world war. Interstate conflicts have declined, and there's been no third world war since the UN was established. So that's not a small accomplishment. We now have a very, very solid set of international standards for global conduct. Third is decolonization. It was the UN that pushed for and oversaw the decolonization of many parts of the world, liberating scores of countries from colonial domination. That's not negligible.
There have been challenges across the globe, be it in the area of conflict resolution or be it a case of crisis management. How has UN been able to cope up with these challenges?
Well, I couldn't agree more that there have been some huge challenges. We have a central body with teeth that no longer represents the geopolitical realities of today. And as you know very well, India has been very vocal on this, and rightly so. India certainly deserves, to have a permanent seat on the Security Council. Yet reform of the Security Council looks like it's going to take still quite a bit more time. Secondly, you mentioned challenges also in the context of COVID. The world has clearly in the last, several years moved away from multilateralism. And that makes it extremely difficult for the UN to do its job. And COVID has put that, front and center on people's radar screen.
Talking about the challenges, what we have seen that the COVID-19 pandemic has really unfolded as a big crisis situation. How do you see the role of UN in this direction?
Well, I think there are different levels and different dimensions of UN coordination. And I think we've done well on some levels and, of course, much less well on others. Well, I think the UN has been quite effective. We've reached billions of people in terms of risk mitigation measures. We've supported 123 countries in formulating their national health response plans. We've built coalitions of partners, governments, research institutes, pharmaceutical companies to accelerate the development of a vaccine and to commit that at least some portion of the vaccine would go to high priority groups like health professionals who are at huge risk of contracting the disease, and to the more vulnerable parts of the population.
Taking on to yet another dimension of climate change, you see, we have been grappling with different issues, and the years to come, this is going to be a major challenge for the humanity. Does these shocks like COVID-19 pandemic give any indication how prepared we are to just take care of these aftershocks of climate change in the years to come?
Well, I think many people are seeing COVID-19 almost like a wake-up call for a bigger crisis, which is climate change. COVID is a fast-moving crisis, and it's immediate. We can see the impacts of it immediately. But climate change is, for most people, it's still an idea in their head. It's actually eating away coastlines, and as you know, there's some islands in the Pacific country that are actually going under. So it is a reality to many, particularly if you take into context, the fierce storms and the increasing intensity of storms, which are attributed partially at least to climate change. So I think overall it should be a huge wake-up call, and not only for climate change, but it should be a wake-up call for the next pandemic.
Well, as we are aware, India has been one of the founding members of United Nations, and it has played a key role in global issues on the UN platform, be it the UN peacekeeping operations or to meet the chloroquine supply needs during the COVID-19 pandemic. As a UN resident coordinator in India, how do you look at India's role at United Nations?
Well, I think India's leadership has been absolutely critical to the UN during its 75 years. Many of the basic values of the UN were actually shaped by India. Let's not forget that it was Hansa Mehta, India's delegate to the Human Rights Commission, back in 1948, that ensured that Article 1 of the Universal Declaration reads today, all human beings are created equal, instead of all men are created equal. And ever since the beginning, India has played a defining role in the UN and with the UN. It became the voice of the non-aligned, the voice against apartheid, the economic global south, especially on trade negotiations. It was a champion at the Paris Agreement, and it's the single biggest contributor in cumulative terms to UN peacekeeping around the world today. I think the UN is also deeply grateful to India for the way that it has appropriated the SDGs. I don't know any other country in the world that has a sort of state-by-state benchmarking system for SDG progress, and also created this aspirational districts where special support is needed to hit us all. But India has made some really striking progress, particularly in poverty reduction, which is, the first of the SDGs. But not only at home, India has also contributed a lot to the SDGs abroad. But India did much more. With its relationship with the UN, International Day of Yoga is thanks to India, and it's a hugely popular day around the world. The establishment of the International Solar Alliance, for example, and more recently the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. These are initiatives that really shows India's commitment to multilateralism. India, in spite of the challenges, found ways to provide medical assistance to 133 countries. The multilateralism of the future will definitely be stronger and more effective because of India's contribution. India's rich history and her culture is infused, with centuries of civilization. And that comes through with her contributions to the UN, contributes a profound understanding and a deep sense of our common humanity.
It has been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Atul. A great pleasure for me to talk to you.
India has started export of moringa powder in view of its rising global demand. 2 tons of organic certified moringa powder were sent to the United States in December 2020. In India, moringa has been used for centuries due to its medicinal properties and health benefits in various forms. More on the plan from our correspondent.
The moringa is a fast-growing softwood tree indigenous to sub-Himalayan tracts of northern India. It even grows in conditions of prolonged drought and is a reliable source of nutrition. Several researchers conclude that moringa seeds are a promising resource for food and non-food applications. The leaves are rich in protein, minerals, beta-carotene and antioxidant compounds and are used not only for human and animal nutrition but also in traditional medicine. It is rich in antioxidants which reduces damage associated with aging and cancer. Given its myriad benefits, it is no wonder that the moringa is fast gaining global recognition as a super crop. This is Anubha Rohatgi for World News, All India Radio.
India has crossed yet another significant milestone in its fight against COVID as the active caseload in the country today has further decreased to 2.43%. With continuous decline in the number of active corona cases, the active cases in the country witnessed a decline of nearly 4,000 cases in the past 24 hours to stand at around 250,000. The national cumulative recovery rate has also further improved to 96.12% with the recovery of over 99 lakh people so far. Over 22,900 people recovered in the past 24 hours.
Moving on to sports and cricket, former Indian captain Sourav Ganguly underwent angioplasty in Kolkata following chest pain. He was treated in Woodlands Hospital and his condition is improving. In football, Messi has returned to play for Barcelona in the La Liga. He has recovered from an ankle injury and ready to take on Huesca on Sunday. Manchester City's Sunday derby against Chelsea will be a challenging task with 5 of its players testing COVID positive. And in South Africa, fast bowler Dale Steyn has pulled out of this year's Indian Premier League IPL. In a tweet he said he's not planning on playing for another team and is just taking some time off. Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in foreign press. New York Times reports that Republicans joined Democrats to override President Trump's veto of the annual defense bill. London-based The Guardian quotes Ireland's Foreign Minister Simon Coveney saying the Brexit is not something to celebrate as he warned of trade disruptions due to fresh red tape. Moscow-based Sputnik writes that China has rejected Taiwan's latest offer of talks. It said that China is accusing Taipei of seeking confrontation with Beijing amid the island's drive for independence. According to Beijing-based Global News, the capital of northeast China's Liaoning province, Shenyang, has put more than 100,000 people in a lockdown amid rising COVID-19 cases.
India has delivered humanitarian assistance and disaster relief support to Fiji after tropical cyclone Yasa. Fiji was hit by a Category 5 tropical cyclone Yasa on December 17th and 18th of 2020, which caused extensive damage and destruction of critical infrastructure. The relief material sent by the Government of India consists of shelter and hygiene kits, which will provide immediate assistance to the cyclone-affected communities. In a statement, the External Affairs Ministry of India has said disaster risk reduction and management is an important pillar of India's Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative, IPOI, announced by Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Niger's ruling party candidate Mohamed Bazoum will face former President Mahaman Usman in a presidential election runoff in February. According to provisional results announced by the Electoral Commission, Bazoum led the first round with 39.33% of the vote, falling short of the 50% plus one needed to win the first round. The Commission said today that Usman has received 17% of the votes cast. Algeria's President Abdelmadjid Tebboune on Friday signed into law the country's new constitution. Referring to the new constitution at the corner store of the new Algeria, Tebboune touted the constitution reform process as a way to quell the Hirak Street protest movement.
A quick look at the headlines once again. India's expert committee of Central Drugs Authority recommends to grant approval for emergency use of COVID-19 vaccine. Nationwide dry run of COVID-19 vaccination exercise held in India today. COVID-19 recovery rate improves to 96.12% in India. 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks mastermind Zaki-ur-Rahman Lakhvi arrested in Pakistan for terror financing. IAEA says Iran has plans to enrich uranium to up to 20%. And in cricket, former Indian skipper Sourav Ganguly suffers a heart attack. Conditions stable now. India is celebrating the 151st birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Before we end, let's listen to his favorite bhajan, Vaishnavajan, by artists from Cuba. And with that, we end this bulletin. See you at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.